Hello everyone, this is Kelly Ann Worthington, and as always today is Mortgage Monday. So the topic today is bankruptcies, Chapter 7, Chapter 13, how they affect you being able to get a mortgage loan, what paperwork you need, what the time frames are, things like that. So I wanted to discuss this because I had a recent realtor ask me for some help understanding, why we need certain paperwork for their clients and how long things affect their clients. And so I thought it would be a great topic to discuss today. So first, let's talk about the different types of bankruptcy. There's two main types of bankruptcy that affect a normal American. So the first one is a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and the other one is a Chapter 13. So a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is very different from a Chapter 13. So it's important to understand the difference between the two. Just one, if it's something you're considering, but two, also to know the difference, and you need to know if you did file, which one you filed, because it makes a difference in regards to the loans you can get and how long you have to wait. So a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is a bankruptcy where there is no repayment plan. It is basically a liquefying of all of your assets that are non-exempt from taxes, and they take all of your assets and they use it to pay off your creditors and debtors. So this bankruptcy is very important to understand that when you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you can lose property like cars, homes, etc. They can be included in the bankruptcy. So you really want to discuss, not with a lender, we're not the people to discuss that with. You'd want to go to an actual bankruptcy attorney to talk to them about what options are best for you, because everybody is in different situations. So that's what a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is. It's a complete liquefying of your assets to pay off debtors and things like that. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy is actually a repayment plan. It's known as a wage earners plan. And so what that does is you set up with them a repayment plan over 3 to 5 years that will show how you are going to pay off the debt within that time frame. So that's the difference between the two. Is a Chapter 7 is a complete liquefying of your assets. Chapter 13 is a repayment plan of repaying the debts within 3 to 5 years. So that's the first thing to know. So next, let's talk about, can you get a loan if you have filed bankruptcy? Because I've found that a lot of people think that they can't, and that actually is not the case. So the answer is yes, you 100% can get a mortgage loan even if you've filed bankruptcy before. There are just some numbers that you have to be aware of in regards to what your timeframes are of being allowed to apply for the loan. So let's talk about Chapter 7 bankruptcy first. So if you are someone who has filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and for both bankruptcies, when you go through the process, at the end of it with the courts, you're going to get a discharge paperwork. That's what gets signed, notarized, and it's when the bankruptcy is officially completed and discharged. That is your date that we are referring to when I talk about timeframes on this video. So with an FHA loan, you have to wait 2 years from your discharge date on your paperwork before you can apply for a mortgage loan. For conventional, it's both Fannie and Freddie, you would have to wait 4 years from your discharge date for your bankruptcy. And for VA, it's 2 years for a VA loan. And then for a USDA loan, it's 3 years from your discharge of duty, your discharge of your bankruptcy paperwork. So that's the timeframes in regards to a Chapter 7. Now with a Chapter 13, the repayment plan, it's a lot different from a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And I think the main reason it's not as much or as long is because it's not as serious as a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So with the Chapter 13 bankruptcy, when you've got that repayment plan, the timeframes for your loans, for FHA, you have to wait and show 12 months of consecutive on-time payments, and you also have to have a trustee letter. For conventional, both Freddie and Fannie, it basically is per the findings of underwriting. And what that means is that when you have a loan officer like me process your application to get you pre-approved, it's going to tell us what we would need from you and what your personal requirements would be for getting a conventional loan if you have done a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Now, with both VA and USDA, they're the same as your FHA loans, that you have to show 12 months of on-time payments and have the trustee letter. So basically what that means is you would have to wait at least 1 year out from your discharge date of your bankruptcy, your Chapter 13, in order to show the verification of the 12 months of payments. So that's the timeframes for both Chapter 7 bankruptcy and Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Now, there's also something that, you might have gone through, and that's a bankruptcy dismissal. And what that means is that you maybe filed paperwork to start a bankruptcy, whether it be Chapter 7 or 13, but you actually withdrew it and didn't go through the process of actually going through the courts, completing it, and getting a discharge. So if you dismissed the bankruptcy, then it's different again. So, but it does matter. It doesn't just go away for some. Now, for FHA and for VA loans, if you go through a bankruptcy dismissal, it's like the bankruptcy never happened. So it's not going to matter. There's nothing required. If you are going conventional and you went through a bankruptcy, then you are going to have to wait 4 years. If you did that dismissal, if you want a conventional loan, it would have to be 4 years from the bankruptcy dismissal date. And then for USDA, they require 2 years from the bankruptcy dismissal. And also our underwriting that we have to do to get you pre-approved is called GUS. It would have to approve it through there as well. So it's not just the 2 years for USDA. Next, let's talk about timeframes that both stay on your credit report. So a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which is, remember, a liquefying of your assets to pay off the debtors. You can also, lose your home, you could lose your car, things like that. That Chapter 7 bankruptcy is going to stay on your credit report for 10 years from the discharge date. So you will have that on there for a full 10 years from the date that you file it. Now, if you're doing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, then you're looking at around 7 years that it stays on your credit report from the discharge date. So just be aware that those are very much going to be on your credit. It typically affects your credit about 100 or more points when you file that. It could be much more, but that's just kind of an average. So you need to understand, even if you're outside of the time frame, if you've made it to that 2 years for FHA and VA that you have to wait, or the 3 years for USDA, or the 4 years for conventional, just because you're outside of that doesn't mean, bam, you're going to get pre-approved. You also have to make sure you have your credit score fixed. And that's one of the other things to just be aware of with a bankruptcy, is that you are going to take a major credit hit on your credit score. And so you want to make sure you take time to not only, get out of the time frame that you need to be with the bankruptcy, but that you also are working diligently on your credit score through the credit reporting bureaus. So that's kind of something just to be aware of as well. So the final thing that I want to talk about in regards to bankruptcy with mortgages is documentation required, because this is a very important thing. I had a client recently who she had her discharge paper, like the final paper, that was the date, but she didn't keep any of the actual paperwork that was part of the court discharge. And she was like, well, it's been over 7 years. I don't have that paperwork anymore. You have to go back and get it. So a loan officer is required to have your full discharge paperwork in order to get you pre-approved. We've got to have the full documentation. So that's the one thing that you're going to be required to have. So if you know that you're looking to get a home and you're like, crap, I don't know where that paperwork is, you can always call the court that you filed your bankruptcy through and ask them for a new copy. You might have to pay for it, but you need to get that full paperwork of your bankruptcy discharge. The second thing that a lender is going to require from you is very simple, but it is required, is what's called a letter of explanation. And a letter of explanation is basically, you date it and you put in there on, just a word letter head, why you filed bankruptcy, what the, situation was that caused it. And then you go ahead and sign and date it at the bottom. So that it's very simple, but that letter of explanation is required. Now, one of the questions I got asked was, if there's a home included in the bankruptcy, does that change something? And it does. It just changes what we have to have paperwork required. So if you filed bankruptcy and you had a mortgage during that time, it's going to be important that you have what's called transfer documentation. And transfer documentation basically states that if you had a home during that time and the home was included in your bankruptcy, we need to know when your name was taken off of the bankruptcy, when that transfer happened. So that transfer documentation would be required as well if you have a home that was part of your bankruptcy. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and then we'll be all done, is I get asked, if it's been so long, why is paperwork required? So it's imperative to understand, if it's on the credit report, there is nothing we can do. So if you are within the 7 to 10 years that you filed bankruptcy, we can't get around it. You have to have the paperwork. It's on the credit report. It's going to be part of your loan process. The other thing that's very important to understand is that we run a fraud guard with our underwriting, and if it pulls that up, we're going to have to do it. And that could be even outside of the 7 to 10 years. So if it comes up in our underwriting process of our fraud guard, we're going to need that paperwork. So it's not something you want to keep from your lender. I find it funny, sometimes people don't tell their lender everything, and then you get through the process and you put an offer in, and then we find out there was something you didn't tell us about. It's going to come out. So it's just very important that you understand your lender is your best friend in your home buying process. You want to make sure that the lender you're working with, you trust, you have clear communication with them. You want to feel like they're on your side. That's why it's so important to me as a lender for you guys, to have communication constantly with you so that you understand where you're at in the process, what's going on, what documents are needed. Because, as anybody knows that's gone through buying a home, there's a bunch of different steps that happen, and you need to have somebody there that's going to be in your corner, communicating with you clearly. That is just very important to understand. So the last thing is just to know that if it's been within 7 to 10 years, you're going to need that paperwork. Sometimes if it was 20 years ago and it's not on your credit report, then most likely no. But if it is on your credit report, or if it's been within, I would say even 11 to 12 years, you're going to need to have your bankruptcy discharge paperwork, and you will need to write the letter of explanation. So I think that covers everything. If you have any questions, as always, I welcome comments below, and I can, go and get the answers for you and things like that. But it just, it's important to know, if you've filed bankruptcy, you can still get a home. You just have to follow the guidelines of the timeframes and work on that credit report. So, our credit score. So as always, I am here to help all of you anytime. If you are someone interested in getting a home and you are looking to get financed, please call me. I am happy to be your mortgage lender and help you through the process. If you're a realtor watching, I would love to, connect with you, answer questions, tell you a little bit about myself and, what I can do to help you and your clients. But I am here 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Reach out anytime. You're never bothering me. You can contact me anytime with my direct line to my cell phone. It's 440-346-6003. And as always, you can also go to my website, kellyanhomeloans.com. That's KELLYANNHOMELOANS.com. So thank you so much for watching. Next week, we're going to be talking about foreclosures because they're different than bankruptcies. They have different requirements. So that'll be the topic for next Mortgage Monday. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having a great day. Reach out anytime. Bye, everyone.